Last weekend, while my little son was happily running around the fields like a lamb, I was thinking of Hitler. I had read online earlier that morning that on October 6, 1944, a 7-year-old Jewish boy, Joachim Hirsch, was murdered in the gas chamber at Auschwitz-Birkenau. I visited Auschwitz in 2006 with my father and sisters. Hard to put it into words, Joachim's murder occurred 75 years to the day last Sunday. His life could have been saved. Joachim was 2 when he was one of the 937 Jewish refugees from Europe on board the St. Louis when the ship was turned away at the port of Miami in June 1939. The U.S. Coast Guard, on the orders of U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, told the captain that the St. Louis carried an undesirable element and would not therefore be allowed to unload their terrified human cargo on the run from the murder machine Third Reich at that particular port or any other port in America. On the drive to Rathagar for the Yoga class, we always pass by where Tommy Reichenthal lives. Unlike Joachim and millions of others, Tommy somehow survived the Holocaust. I interviewed him in 2009 ahead of his RTE documentary, I Was a Boy in Belsen. He had told how, as a 9-year-old in the Nazi concentration camp in Germany, he had memories of Belsen's crematoria in January 1945 being unable to cope with the vast numbers of corpses. The bodies were just left there, lying all around, he recalled. The sight was absolutely horrific, as were the screams of innocents being beaten to a bloody pulp in the snow, the summary executions, the walking cadavers left to die without mercy, the screaming voices, the endless corpses. As far as young Tommy could see, in Belsen there were corpses, and these corpses were rotting and decomposing. When the British Army arrived in April 1945, Tommy recalled they said that 2 miles outside of Belsen they could smell the stench coming from the camp. Yet Tommy and his big brother Mickey didn't even notice the smell. The kids, Tommy explained to me, we were running between these corpses. That was our surroundings. When the liberation came on April 15, 1945, there was, Tommy told me, no jubilation. They felt nothing. Tommy and his brother thought they and a few others were the only children in Belsen. He found out only a few years ago that there were 500 children there. Beside us was the Dutch block and Anne Frank was in that particular block. I never met her. She got typhoid and she died about 2 weeks before the British came. Last Sunday afternoon after kids yoga for my daughter and a run in the park for her baby brother, we picked up Mummy and went to Sandymount Playground. There were so many kids running around it was like a scene from a vintage Disney movie. My daughter went up the big slide and came down it at such speed that I thought she was going to take flight. She enjoyed herself so much that it caused a scene to get off it all. When the light was starting to fade and it was time to go home, she kept insisting on one more go down the big slide. After about 10 last goes, I had no alternative but to scoop her up and carry her towards the exit gate. This attempted exit was accompanied by my little darling protesting in her own cutesy, inimitable style about the injustice at having to leave the playground. I haven't even had a proper go on the swings, can I just have another go on the roundabout? I need to have a proper turn on the swings, Daddy. The poor mouse was such a compelling negotiator that I went back on my earlier position of no more time in the playground and let her have a proper turn on the swings. And the roundabout, and one last go on the big slide. She was so worn out after all that sliding that I had to carry her to Sandymount Strand where we met her brother and Mummy. We were worn out too and couldn't face cooking and agreed to go out for Sunday tea as a treat. We went to Quattro Wood Fire Pizza in Stepaside Village for a lovely meal. When I say lovely, I would qualify that by saying the food was delicious. Regrettably, I barely got a chance to digest it because our baby son wouldn't stay in his high chair and insisted on being put down to walk around the restaurant. I chased